Hi there, my name's Mel Ashworth and welcome to Coffee with a Councillor, and I have the pleasure today of talking with Councillor Elfan Ap Rees. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, everybody gets it the same.
That's quite a mouthful. Is it Welsh?
It is Welsh.
It's Welsh.
I've lived in Weston since I was a small child.
Ah, right, okay. Well, welcome. And you're the Deputy Leader of the North Somerset Council.
Yeah.
Which ward and party are you representing?
I represent Locking, Hutton and Bleedon in my sort of day-to-day job, if you like.
Right.
And I'm a Conservative.
Right, yes. Now, how long have you been involved in the council?
Coming up to 35 years now.
35 years? Wow. Okay.
Man and boy.
Man and boy. Can I ask what age you were when you joined?
No.
Well, swiftly moving
I can't
on.
remember, quite frankly.
Remember. Okay. How long, what motivated you to become a councillor and to get involved in politics?
I started off on Locking Parish Council.
Yeah.
And I lived in the village. My wife lived in the village.
Right.
So I started off there in the early 70s. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to Weston from Locking for a time. So sort of resigned from the parish council, stood for what was then Avon County Council, and lost. And then the following year stood for the district council, and I've been a district councillor ever since.
Right. So what was it that motivated you specifically?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I just felt that rather than stand and criticise, you needed to get up and do something about it yourself if you could.
Be a voice for the community.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. What do you think makes a good councillor, Elfan?
I think there are two things. Clearly, having an interest in the local community and listening to what the majority of the local community is saying. And secondly, to be honest, having a bit of a business head so that you can actually make sensible decisions and drive things forward. Right,
okay. Some people would probably criticise the Tropicana situation as not being a wise decision. I know that Mr Ellis and the people from Puxton and elsewhere are looking at trying to, get that off its knees or out of the grave, should we say. Have you got thoughts on that? Because, a lot of people who don't maybe have a real insight into the workings of the council just want to know why. Why can't we have what we want, which is a functioning...
I mean, various councils, previous administration, when Councillor Mike Bell was on the executive, for instance, everybody's been looking at this problem. Nobody has come up with a viable solution. That's the bottom line. And really, we've got to the stage where we've said, well, we just can't go on with this indefinitely. The buildings are falling apart. There's a lot of... So much work would have to be done now to bring it all back into use, and it still wouldn't make money. Surely the solution is to start with a clean slate, get rid of what's there. And then if people want to come forward when the economic situation improves and come forward with a new project for whatever, an open air Lido or, other leisure attraction, then fine. But we can't go on having that eyesore, which it is now, on that lovely seafront.
Did you use the Tropicana when you were allowed?
I absolutely did, and to be honest, I fought to try and get some interest in doing something there. And 7 or 8 months ago, we went out to people and said, come forward with your ideas. Now, I have to say, Mead didn't come forward at that time. Neither did Kerry Michael on the Grand Pier. Neither of them came forward with anything. And we really had this last-ditch position where the Working Party met, 2 weeks ago. There were some proposals that came forward, but everybody across all the parties agreed that none of them were viable. Now, I think it's time to say, let's just bury the old lady gracefully and let's try and see what can be done there in the future. starting from scratch.
Okay, thank you. Getting back to yourself, now, what do you believe makes a good counsellor? Did we discuss that just then?
I think we probably did.
We did, didn't we?
Yes.
I've lost my notes. Sorry. Were you born and brought up in Western? Or?
No, I wasn't. I was. Funnily enough, I was born in Oxford.
Oh, okay.
People who don't know me think I'm Welsh, but actually I'm only Welsh by heritage.
Right. So who was Welsh in your family?
My father and, in fact, most of the family were born in Wales.
Okay.
But they moved to England
Yes.
just before the war and didn't go back to Wales until the after, the 1950s,
Right.
1960s. And I was born in England.
Yes.
And when they went back in actually just trying to think when it was, in the 1950s, I already had a steady girlfriend. So I said, goodbye, I'm staying in Western.
Did you marry her?
I did.
Oh, fabulous. How long have you been married?
Unfortunately, she died about 20 years ago of cancer.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Now, which school did you go to?
I went to Locking Road Junior School,
Oh.
which younger people won't remember.
Right. That's where Jan Holloway went.
Yes.
Did you go to school together?
No.
Oh, okay.
She's much younger than me.
Well, I realised that when I was asking the question.
Yeah, and then I went to what was Western Grammar School.
Okay, right. And then did you go on to college or...?
No, I got expelled from the grammar school in the 5th form.
Why?
And went to
Why
Churchill.
did you get... No, hang on.
Oh,
backtrack.
okay. Well,
why did you get expelled? You're not going to get away with...
No, I'm quite open about it. The problem really was that I was only 10 when I went to the grammar school. It was the way my birthday fell. So I was much younger than most of the others. And frankly, I didn't fit in very well to that sort of environment. I never did take orders very well. And, it was quite a strict discipline school. And so I was always playing jokes and goodness knows what else. Spent most of the Latin lessons standing outside in the quadrangle. As eventually it got too much for the headmaster. But I was very lucky because one of the teachers at the grammar school used to run the air training corps squadron, which I was in. And he went to Churchill School as deputy head. And I actually left the grammar school and went to the secondary school to take all my GCEs, etc.
At Churchill.
And it really worked out well, at Churchill, because I had one-to-one tuition, for instance, on some lessons, because I was the only person taking them.
Right.
But in some ways it transformed my life, because they made me deputy head boy of Churchill School.
So,
And then I won an Outward Bound scholarship in the Lake District, where I mixed with people from public school, a guy from the Tate and Lyle factory in the East End of London. And that taught me that whoever you are, you can, if you want to do things, you can.
Right.
We're all equal. Everybody's got an
yourself.
equal chance.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that really was a turning point for me.
Now that's interesting because I don't know if you know this, but one of my passions is young people and seeing them thrive and encouraging them where I can. And what would you say to young people maybe watching the show, how they can get involved in local politics and make a difference? I
would say two things really, not just necessarily local politics, but if you really want to do something, go for it.
Right.
Don't be put off by people.
Right.
It certainly coloured my political career. Because as I said earlier, I thought that, okay, I'm not going to sit back and just criticise and moan and wait for somebody else to pick up and
get
do something.
Involved.
Do it yourself.
Yes.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
You might not always be popular. You might not always do something that other people feel is right. But at least
you don't go into politics to be popular as such.
No,
with
but at least you're doing something.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Thank you. I do have a question I ask everybody. 3 people you'd love to invite to a dinner party, living or dead? Who would you love to sit down with? And
that's a very difficult question to answer.
Well, we can come back to that.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that one, okay. Right, so what do you do to relax? You probably don't get much time to relax, I would have thought.
My relaxation is the Helicopter Museum.
Ah, right.
I'm chairman of the trustees there. I think most people know that you know, I kind of started it off as a hobby, which got out of control. And I always say to people, look, don't start collecting things because you don't know where it's going to end up. But that's my hobby.
Have you actually flown one or well, you've obviously been in one.
I do fly. I am a licensed pilot, and I do have my own helicopter when it works.
Fantastic. I must be honest, I am impressed. I do like small aircraft.
Well, again,
you can invite me for a ride in your helicopter.
But it comes back to that philosophy. If you really want to do something,
absolutely.
You can.
Just go for it. Fabulous. I'm going to ask you this question. How can we get more women into politics, Elfan? Because I've only interviewed 4 women on this show, and the rest have been men, and we've clocked up quite a number now.
Yeah.
And I think women have a lot to add into everything.
Yes.
Being a woman, I would say that. So what would you say?
Again, I mean, the door is open. And I think if women do have strong ideas about things, why shouldn't they put themselves forward? You know, they do have an equal voice, and you know, I would certainly encourage more women to get involved. The only difference I have, I suppose, from some philosophies is that I don't think they should be, in inverted commas, forced into it.
No, of course not.
And I think that they should be prepared to take equal chances with other people in society. So that they are standing on their own 2 feet, and people can't be standing there saying, oh, well, of course, she only got in because, you know, that particular party only accepted women candidates or something. You know?
Oh, no.
I think that's wrong.
Yeah. Mike Bell said that it's time for you to retire. Now, what do you think about that comment? Bearing in mind that the majority of councillors tend to be older people, and that brings with it a maturity, I know, and you know, life education. What would you say?
Well, I mean, Mike Bell has a chip on his shoulder, unfortunately. He stood against me in the past and lost. He's tried to stand several times against our local MP and lost an election. When he was in a position of making decisions, he didn't make them. He nearly bankrupted the council before we took over 5 years ago. Now, there may be a number of reasons of that, but arguably maturity isn't one of them. So, you know, I'm sorry if he makes those sorts of comments. I'm quite happy with, I have the most difficult job in the executive because I have all the sorts of things that people complain about, whether it's repairing the roads, you know, say looking after some of our buildings, you know, strategic planning, housing, they all fall under my portfolio, which I've only had for the last four years. But, you know, the executive is there to make decisions, and as I said, there may not always be popular decisions to those on the outside, but I firmly believe that they are the right decisions, and we've made a lot of progress in the last 4 or 5 years. We're now the top performing unitary authority in the country. You know, we have the second lowest council tax. You know, there's been a lot of achievements.
Is this England or nationally?
Nationally, yeah.
Okay.
But clearly people on the outside who aren't having to make those decisions, like Mike Bell, can criticise. But, you know, they're not there in the position of authority. And he leads a very small group, you know.
Thank you. Well, you've had your opportunity to...
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. So can we just go back, complete change of tack, 3 people that you would like to have at a dinner party? Is there anyone...
Still present. I suppose I'd have to think about it ever so hard. One would probably be Igor Sikorsky, who was a gentleman who developed the helicopter during the early 1940s.
Okay, yes. You'd have a lot to talk about, I think.
Yes, we would, probably. I know his son very well, but I've never actually met Igor Sikorsky.
Igor?
Igor, yeah.
Which country?
He was a Russian emigre to the United States.
Okay.
So he'd probably be one.
Yes.
Secondly, I don't know. I'm struggling because
Okay,
all my friends are in the helicopter industry, and all my passion in that sense is in the helicopter industry.
Yeah. Any famous people? Or
I'm not into celebrities.
No, nor am I. Nor am I.
So
don't worry. No, it's just a fun thing I like to ask my guests.
Yeah.
Listen, Elfan, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming in.
My
today.
pleasure too. Thank you.
Well, once again, that's it for today. Coffee with the Councillor's come to an end, and we just thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.